All right, buckle up because we're diving headfirst into the world of incident response playbooks. You know I love a good plan. And from the looks of this stack of resources you sent, we're about to become cybersecurity strategists. What's the big deal with these playbooks anyway?
Think of them as meticulously crafted game plans for when cyber chaos hits. Instead of scrambling in the dark, you've got this step-by-step guide, almost like a fire drill for your digital life. Everyone knows their role, everyone knows what to do, and ideally you keep the damage to a minimum.
Okay, that makes sense, but give me a real-world scenario. Say a company gets slammed with a ransomware attack. What's in this playbook that's going to save the day?
First things first, you need to know what you're dealing with. The playbook helps identify the type of ransomware, which is like figuring out if your house fire is from a stovetop mishap or something more sinister. Then it's all about containment. Imagine digital fire doors slamming shut, isolating infected systems, passwords changing faster than you can say password 123, and any communication from that compromised machine blocked.
So you've stopped the spread, but the ransomware's still there, right?
Exactly, which is why the next phase is eradication. Think of it like digitally dousing the flames, removing malicious code, restoring from backups, hopefully you have those, and patching up any vulnerabilities that let the ransomware in. Finally, the playbook guides you through the recovery process, getting systems back online and restoring order to the digital world.
Wow, that's intense. But I'm guessing different attacks require different playbooks. I mean, you wouldn't use a fire extinguisher on a flood, right? What are some of the most common types of playbooks companies use?
You're spot on. Just like you have different emergency plans for different disasters, cybersecurity needs specialized playbooks too. We're talking phishing attacks, those sneaky emails trying to trick you, brute force attacks where hackers just keep guessing passwords until something gives, even insider threats, like that disgruntled employee who just wants to watch the world burn,
Mm.
digitally speaking, of course.
Okay, so you've got these different playbooks for different attacks. But are they like off-the-shelf solutions or do companies need to tailor them? I mean, a local bakery wouldn't need the same playbook as, say, a bank handling millions of transactions, right?
You're absolutely right. You can't just buy a one-size-fits-all playbook and call it a day. It's like having a fire escape plan. The bakery might just need a simple route out the back, while that high-rise bank needs multiple escape routes, fire suppression systems, the whole shebang. A smaller company with limited IT resources has different priorities and vulnerabilities compared to a tech giant with a whole cybersecurity army.
That makes sense. It's about understanding your own risks and tailoring your defenses accordingly. Speaking of different scenarios, you mentioned impossible travel playbooks earlier, which sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie to me. What exactly are those about?
It's not about teleporting employees, I promise. It's more about making sure nobody's hijacked their digital identities for a joyride. Imagine checking your bank account and seeing a purchase made in Tokyo while you're sitting at home sipping your coffee. That's impossible travel, a major red flag for account takeover.
Okay, now that you mention it, I've definitely gotten those fraud alerts from my bank before, but I never knew there was a specific playbook for that. So how does it work? What happens when this impossible travel alarm bell rings?
Well, these playbooks help security teams jump into action. First, they verify the alert. Is it a false positive, or is someone actually trying to impersonate you in the digital world? Then, they work to contain the threat, which might involve suspending the account, resetting passwords, and tracking down the source of the breach.
So it's like a digital version of those crime procedurals where they trace a phone call and track down the bad guy.
Exactly. Except instead of fingerprints and DNA evidence, they're following the digital trail of IP addresses, login attempts, and other clues that can help them identify and neutralize the threat. Sometimes, it's a simple mistake, like you logging in from a VPN on vacation. Other times, it's a full-blown account takeover attempt.
This is fascinating stuff. It sounds like having a good set of playbooks is like having a secret weapon in the fight against cybercrime.
They're definitely a powerful tool. But it's not just about having a plan. It's about having the right people who know how to use it.
Hmm.
I'm talking about a well-trained security team who can react quickly and decisively when an incident occurs.
Okay, that makes sense. You can have the most amazing fire escape plan in the world, but if no one knows how to use it, you're still in trouble. Speaking of which, I saw some materials about playbooks used by the federal government. It seems like they have a playbook for everything.
You're not wrong. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short, has created a whole library of playbooks specifically for federal agencies. This isn't just about protecting government data, it's about safeguarding critical infrastructure, national security, the whole 9 yards.
So it's like the government's version of those disaster movies where they have a plan for every possible apocalypse.
Exactly. Alien invasion, there's a playbook for that. Massive cyber attack, they've got that covered too. It highlights just how seriously they take incident response at the highest levels.
And I'm guessing these government playbooks are super intense, right?
They're definitely comprehensive. One document I found particularly interesting focused on major incidents, those with the potential to disrupt national security, the economy, even public safety.
Okay, now we're talking serious business. What exactly do they consider a major incident? I'm picturing something out of a Tom Clancy novel.
Think large-scale data breaches, ransomware attacks that cripple essential services, coordinated disinformation campaigns, anything with the potential to cause significant harm to the nation.
So we're talking about scenarios that could keep even the most seasoned cybersecurity expert up at night. What's fascinating to me is how do these playbooks actually help in those high-stakes situations?
It's all about having a clear roadmap for action. Imagine the chaos of a major cyber attack systems crashing, data leaking, everyone scrambling to figure out what's going on. A well-designed playbook cuts through that chaos, providing a step-by-step guide for investigation, containment, eradication, and recovery.
So it's like having a battle plan ready to go even before the first shot is fired.
Exactly. And these plans aren't just about reacting. They also emphasize proactive measures. For example, CISA stresses the importance of establishing a clear chain of command, designating an incident manager, and having pre-established communication channels with other agencies, even law enforcement if necessary.
So it's not just about tech wizards typing furiously in the dark, it's about coordinating a whole team of experts.
Absolutely. You've got your technical folks analyzing malware, your communication experts managing the message to the public, legal teams navigating the minefield of regulations, all working in sync.
That's incredible. It's like a well-oiled machine swinging into action to defend against these digital threats. But with all this talk of government playbooks and major incidents, I have to ask, what about us regular folks? Are there any takeaways from these high-level plans that we can apply to our own digital lives?
Great question. While we may not be dealing with nation-state attackers, many of the principles still apply. For example, having strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, enabling multi-factor authentication wherever possible, these are basic steps that everyone should be taking.
It's like having a good security system on your house. It deters the opportunistic burglar, even if you're not worried about a full-on Ocean's 11 style heist.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't leave your door unlocked or your valuables out in the open, you need to be mindful of your digital footprint. Be cautious about the links you click, the attachments you open, and the information you share online.
So it's about being aware of those everyday digital risks and taking those small but significant steps to protect ourselves. Now, you mentioned earlier that playbooks need to be tailored to specific organizations. But within a company, are there different playbooks for different types of incidents? It's not all just ransomware and data breaches, right?
You're right, cybersecurity is a wide battlefield. Remember those insider threats we talked about? A disgruntled employee accessing confidential files requires a different playbook than, say, a misconfigured cloud server leaking data accidentally.
Right. It's like having a plan for a kitchen fire versus a burst pipe. Both are disasters, but they require different responses. So how do you even begin to create these specialized playbooks? It seems overwhelming.
It definitely takes careful planning. But it starts with identifying your crown jewels, those critical assets that would cause the most damage if compromised. Then you think like an attacker. How could someone try to get to those assets? What vulnerabilities exist?
So you're playing a game of chess against every possible threat.
Exactly. And each move you anticipate helps you develop a counter move, a step in your playbook. It's a continuous process too. Technology changes, new threats emerge. Your playbook needs to be a living document constantly evolving.
It's like playing whack-a-mole with cyber threats. Speaking of which, you mentioned this term TTPS earlier. It sounds like something from a spy movie. Break that down for me. What does it even stand for?
TTP, tactics, techniques, and procedures. It's about getting into the mind of your attacker. Tactics are their goals. Why are they attacking? Is it for financial gain? To disrupt operations. Techniques are the how, phishing emails, malware, exploiting software vulnerabilities. Procedures are the nitty-gritty details, the specific commands used, the files targeted, the whole attack fingerprint.
So it's like those crime shows where they analyze the killer's MO, except in this case, it's a hacker's MO.
You got it. And just like understanding a criminal's MO helps catch them, understanding hacker TTPs helps you build stronger defenses.
That's pretty amazing. You're not just reacting to an attack, you're trying to predict their next move. It's like a high stakes game of chess, but with digital pawns and rooks. Speaking of chess matches, let's talk about those cloud misconfigurations you mentioned earlier. I have to admit, it's not the most exciting sounding threat, but you made it clear that it's a big deal.
Oh, it absolutely is. With so much of our work and personal lives moving to the cloud, these misconfigurations are like leaving a trapdoor wide open in your digital fortress.
Okay, trapdoor, now you've got my attention.
Yeah.
Give me an example. What does a cloud misconfiguration even look like?
Imagine a company storing sensitive customer data, credit card numbers, social security numbers, the works in a cloud storage bucket. Now imagine if the security settings on that bucket were accidentally set to public, meaning anyone with the right URL could access that data.
Okay, now that's terrifying. It's like accidentally posting your bank statements on social media instead of sending them to your accountant.
Precisely. And these kinds of misconfigurations happen more often than you'd think. It could be a simple oversight during setup, a misconfigured access control list, even an outdated software plugin. The possibilities are unfortunately vast.
So these aren't necessarily malicious attacks, they're more like digital accidents waiting to happen.
Exactly, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They can be difficult to detect, and the damage can be done before anyone even realizes there's a problem. That's why having a dedicated cloud misconfiguration playbook is so critical.
Okay, walk me through this. What does this playbook entail? How do you even begin to tackle this kind of threat?
It starts with awareness. Companies need to understand that cloud security is a shared responsibility. Yes, the cloud provider has a role in securing the infrastructure, but the customer is ultimately responsible for configuring their own settings and applications securely.
So it's like renting an apartment. The landlord is responsible for the building's security, but you're responsible for locking your own door and keeping your valuables safe.
A perfect analogy. And just like you wouldn't invite a stranger into your apartment without checking their ID, you shouldn't grant access to your cloud resources without proper authentication and authorization.
That makes perfect sense. So once a company understands this shared responsibility, what concrete steps can they take to prevent these cloud mishaps?
One crucial step is conducting regular security audits of their cloud environment. Think of it like a home inspection. You're looking for any potential weaknesses or vulnerabilities that could be exploited. These audits can be done manually, but increasingly, companies are turning to automated tools that can scan their cloud infrastructure for known misconfigurations.
So it's like having a digital security guard patrolling your cloud fortress 24/7, looking for any signs of trouble.
Exactly. And these tools can be incredibly effective at spotting those subtle misconfigurations that might escape the human eye.
That's reassuring. But what happens if, despite your best efforts, a misconfiguration slips through the cracks and leads to a security incident? That's where the playbook comes into play, right?
Absolutely. Just like with any other type of cybersecurity incident, having a clear plan of action is essential. The playbook would outline the steps for containing the breach, assessing the damage, notifying affected parties, and implementing corrective measures to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future.
So it's not just about preventing misconfigurations, it's also about having a plan for dealing with the aftermath.
Exactly. And this plan should include things like having backups of your data, establishing communication channels with your cloud provider, and having a process for reviewing and updating your security policies on a regular basis.
This is all incredibly insightful. It's making me rethink my own approach to cloud security, that's for sure. Now, you mentioned earlier that cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field. What other emerging threats are keeping you up at night these days? I'm ready for some more of those aha moments.
Well, one area that I'm particularly interested in is the rise of AI-powered attacks.
AI-powered attacks. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It might sound futuristic, but the reality is that attackers are already using AI and machine learning to make their attacks more sophisticated and harder to detect.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Give me an example. How are they using AI to up their game?
One way is by using AI to create more convincing phishing emails. Think about it traditionally. Phishing emails have been pretty easy to spot. They often have grammatical errors, suspicious links, or just a general air of unprofessionalism.
Right, like that Nigerian prince who keeps emailing me about a huge inheritance. I'm still waiting for that one to pan out.
Exactly. But with AI, attackers can now generate phishing emails that are virtually indistinguishable from legitimate emails. They can tailor the language and tone to specific individuals, even mimic the writing style of trusted contacts.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky. So it's like having an AI-powered con artist crafting these emails, making them much more convincing and harder to resist.
Precisely. And it's not just phishing emails. AI is also being used to automate other aspects of the attack lifecycle, such as reconnaissance, malware development, and even evading detection by security tools.
So it's like having an army of AI-powered hackers working tirelessly to find and exploit vulnerabilities.
That's a good way to put it. The good news is that the cybersecurity industry is also using AI to fight back, developing new tools and techniques to detect and respond to these AI-powered attacks.
So it's like an arms race with both sides using increasingly sophisticated AI to try to outsmart each other.
Exactly. It's a constant game of cat and mouse, but it's one that we can't afford to lose.
It's like something out of war games, but instead of global thermonuclear war, it's about who controls the algorithms. So how do we even begin to defend against these AI-powered attacks? Are we all doomed to be outsmarted by super intelligent robots?
Don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. While the threat is real and constantly evolving, so are the defenses. The cybersecurity industry is fighting fire with fire, developing AI-powered tools that can analyze massive amounts of data, detect subtle patterns, and identify attacks that would slip past traditional security measures.
So it's like having our own team of AI-powered defenders, constantly learning and adapting to the latest threats.
Exactly. These AI-powered security tools can analyze network traffic, user behavior, even the code of suspicious files, looking for those telltale signs of malicious activity. And the beauty of AI is that it can learn and adapt much faster than humans, constantly evolving to stay one step ahead of the attackers.
That's reassuring. But AI tools aside, are there any fundamental cybersecurity principles that remain essential even in this age of increasingly sophisticated attacks?
Absolutely. One principle that always holds true is the importance of a strong security culture. You can have the most advanced technology in the world, but if your employees are clicking on phishing links or using weak passwords, you're still vulnerable.
It's like having a state-of-the-art security system on your house, but leaving the back door wide open.
Exactly. That's why user education and awareness training are more critical than ever. Employees need to understand the evolving threat landscape, recognize the signs of a potential attack, and know what steps to take to protect themselves and the organization.
So it's about empowering every individual to become a cybersecurity advocate, not just relying on technology to save the day.
Precisely. And that brings us to another timeless cybersecurity principle, the idea of defense in depth. It's not enough to rely on a single layer of security, like a firewall or antivirus software. You need multiple layers of defense working together to create a more resilient security posture.
So it's like having multiple locks on your door, a security system, and a watchful neighbor. Even if one layer fails, the others are there to provide backup.
Exactly. And these layers can include everything from technical controls like intrusion detection systems and data loss prevention solutions to administrative controls like access management policies for regular security audits.
It's about creating a multifaceted defense system that makes it as difficult as possible for attackers to succeed.
Exactly. And that approach is even more important in the age of AI-powered attacks, where attackers are constantly finding new and creative ways to bypass traditional defenses.
This has been an incredible deep dive, and you've given me a lot to think about. As we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
Remember that cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. There's no magic bullet, no single solution that will eliminate all risk. It's about staying informed, being proactive, and continuously adapting your defenses to meet the evolving threat.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank you for taking us on this fascinating journey through the world of incident response playbooks. It's been an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay one step ahead of the bots.